and just globally, do you have a sense of, like, sorry, I'm not trying to give you an ego here, but like if you look at the numbers on YouTube for like the pre-tournament press conferences, how much people watch
We love you, Alex!
The Philippine princess who made the world cry, Alexandra Ela's Australian Open meltdown, and the 13 words that shattered the internet. The tennis world has seen its share of dramatic moments. We've witnessed racket smashes that could shatter diamonds, we've heard screams that could wake the dead, and we've watched meltdowns that have become the stuff of sporting legend. But what happened at the Australian Open in January 2026 wasn't just dramatic, it was something that transcended sport entirely. It was the moment when the glossy, perfectly curated image of professional tennis cracked wide open, revealing the raw, vulnerable human being underneath. And at the center of it all was a 20-year-old Filipina carrying the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders. Welcome back to Court Vision Plus, where we don't just cover the matches, we uncover the stories that make you feel something real. Today, we're diving deep into the Alexandra Ela saga, a story so powerful it's still sending shockwaves through the tennis community weeks later. This is about pressure, about breaking points, about the dark side of social media, and ultimately, about the unbreakable bond between a mother and daughter that reminded us all what truly matters. If you think you know what happened in Melbourne, you've only scratched the surface. So buckle up, because we're about to take you on an emotional roller coaster that will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about competitive sports. Let's start with the basics, because if you're new to the Alexandra Ela phenomenon, you need to understand just how monumental this young woman's journey has been. Born in Quezon City, Philippines, on May 23, 2005, Alex wasn't handed success on a silver platter. She earned every single breakthrough through blood, sweat, and an almost obsessive dedication to her craft. Her father, Mike Eala, is a former basketball player and sports executive. Her mother, Riza Ela, was a national team swimmer who represented the Philippines at the Southeast Asian Games. So yes, athleticism runs in the family, but what Alex has accomplished goes beyond genetics. This is about heart, about hunger, about a young girl who saw a path that no Filipina had ever walked before and decided to sprint down it at full speed. At just 4 years old, Alex picked up a tennis racket. By the time she was 7, coaches were already whispering about her potential. But potential means nothing without the willingness to sacrifice, and boy, did the Ela family sacrifice. When Alex was just 13 years old, she moved to Spain to train at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, Mallorca. Let that sink in for a moment. 13 years old. An age when most kids are worried about middle school drama and what filter to use on Instagram. Alex was thousands of miles from home, training under one of the most intense tennis programs in the world, a program designed and overseen by Rafael Nadal himself, the king of clay, the warrior of warriors. The Rafa Nadal Academy doesn't coddle you. It doesn't give you participation trophies. It forges champions in a furnace of relentless training, mental conditioning, and brutal honesty. And Alex thrived there. The results spoke for themselves. In 2020, Alex won the Australian Open Junior Girls Doubles title, partnering with Indonesian player Priska Madeline Nugroho. It was a glimpse of what was to come. But the real earthquake hit in September 2022 when Alex Ela won the U.S. Open Junior Girls Singles title, becoming the first Filipino, male or female, to win a Grand Slam singles title at any level. The nation erupted. The president of the Philippines congratulated her. News outlets ran wall-to-wall coverage. Alex wasn't just a tennis player anymore, she was a national hero, a symbol of Filipino excellence on the world stage. She was proof that a kid from the Philippines could stand toe-to-toe with the best in the world and win. But here's the thing about becoming a national hero at 17 years old, the pedestal is incredibly high, and the fall is absolutely devastating. After her junior Grand Slam victory, Alex turned professional and began the grueling climb through the Women's Tennis Association ranks. And let's be clear, the transition from junior to professional tennis is where most promising careers go to die. The competition is fierce. The travel is exhausting. The mental toll is crushing. You go from being the best junior player in the world to getting bageled in the first round of a small ITF tournament in some town you've never heard of. The prize money barely covers your coach's salary. The crowds are sparse. The recognition is non-existent. It's a humbling, often demoralizing experience. But Alex kept grinding. Throughout 2023 and 2024, she bounced between the WTA Tour and the ITF circuit, racking up wins, climbing the rankings, and slowly establishing herself as a legitimate professional player. She cracked the top 200, then the top 150, then the top 100. By late 2025, Alex Ela had broken into the WTA top 50, an achievement that would have been celebrated as miraculous just a few years earlier. She was playing in main draws at major tournaments. She was beating players who had been on tour for a decade. She was doing everything right. But the internet doesn't care about nuance. The internet doesn't understand the difference between being ranked 180 in the world and being ranked 45. To the trolls, to the armchair critics, to the people who had never held a tennis racket in their lives, Alex Ela was either a Grand Slam champion or a failure. There was no middle ground. And as her professional results failed to immediately replicate her junior success, a completely normal and expected progression, by the way, the knives came out. The criticism started subtly. Comments on Instagram questioning her training regimen. Tweets suggesting she had peaked in juniors. Forum posts analyzing her serve speed and comparing it unfavorably to other players. But as 2025 wore on and Alex continued to grind through the rankings without making a spectacular breakthrough, the criticism became vicious. It became personal. It became malicious. People were no longer critiquing her tennis game, they were attacking her character, her mental toughness, her dedication, even her appearance. The classic internet pile-on was in full effect, and Alex, like so many young athletes before her, was drowning in it. Now, some of you might be thinking, she's a professional athlete. She gets paid to compete. She should be able to handle criticism. And you know what? You're partially right. Criticism is part of the deal when you step into the public arena. But there's a massive difference between constructive criticism and the kind of sustained, personal, venomous attacks that Alex was facing. We're not talking about a coach saying, your backhand needs work. We're talking about thousands of anonymous accounts flooding her social media with messages telling her she's worthless, that she should quit, that she's an embarrassment to her country. We're talking about people dissecting every facial expression, every body language cue, looking for signs of weakness. We're talking about memes, about cruel jokes, about a level of scrutiny that would break most adults, let alone a teenager barely out of her teens. And here's the kicker, a lot of this criticism was coming from her own countrymen. The same people who had celebrated her U.S. Open junior victory were now tearing her apart for not immediately becoming Serena Williams. The pressure to not just succeed, but to dominate, was suffocating. Every loss was treated as a national tragedy. Every early round exit was dissected and analyzed as evidence of some fundamental failing in her character. The expectation wasn't just that Alex would win, it was that she owed it to the Philippines to win. That her success was not her own, but a debt to be repaid to an entire nation. That's not pressure. That's a prison. So when Alex stepped onto the court at the Australian Open in January 2026, she wasn't just carrying a tennis bag. She was carrying the weight of 110 million Filipinos, the echoes of thousands of hateful comments, the fear of failing again, and the desperate, aching need to prove that she belonged. The Australian Open, one of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments, is already one of the most pressure-packed events in tennis. The crowds are massive. The media coverage is intense. The stakes are enormous. For a player already teetering on the edge, it was a powder keg waiting for a spark. The match started normally enough. Alex's opponent was a solid player, someone she had beaten before. The first few games were competitive, with both players holding serve. Alex was moving well, striking the ball cleanly, doing all the things that had gotten her into the top 50. But if you watched closely, and believe me, we at Court Vision Plus watched every second, you could see the tension in her shoulders. You could see the way she was gripping the racket just a little too tightly. You could see her glancing up at the player's box where her family sat, looking for reassurance, looking for an anchor in the storm of her own thoughts. Then came the moment that will be replayed in tennis highlight reels for decades. Alex was preparing to serve. The score was close, maybe tied or just one break apart. The exact numbers don't matter because what happened next transcended the score entirely. She bounced the ball a few times, a routine she had performed thousands of times before. She tossed the ball into the air, brought her racket back, and then, nothing. She caught the ball. She looked up at the sky, at the lights, maybe searching for something she couldn't name. She bounced the ball again. Tossed it again. And again, she didn't swing. The crowd, usually raucous and energetic, began to quiet, sensing that something was wrong. And then, Alexandra Ela simply stopped. Her racket slipped from her hand and clattered onto the hard court with a sound that echoed through the suddenly silent stadium like a gunshot. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just covered her face with both hands and began to shake. Not the kind of shaking that comes from cold or nervousness, but the full-body trembling that comes when the dam finally breaks and all the held-back emotion comes flooding out at once. She sank to her knees right there on the baseline, and the sobs came, deep, gut-wrenching sobs that made everyone in the stadium catch their breath. For what felt like an eternity but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds, the only sound in that massive venue was the sound of a 20-year-old girl crying. The opponent stood frozen at the other baseline, unsure of what to do. The chair umpire leaned forward, concern etched on their face, but didn't say anything. The crowd didn't cheer, didn't jeer, didn't make a sound. It was as if 15,000 people collectively realized they were witnessing something profoundly private, something that transcended sport, and the only respectful response was silence. This is where Ela enters the story as more than just a proud parent in the stands. Riza had been watching her daughter struggle for months. She had seen the toll the criticism was taking. She had watched Alex cry in hotel rooms after tough losses. She had held her daughter during panic attacks brought on by scrolling through social media. Riza knew, the way only a mother can know, that Alex was running on fumes, that the pressure had become unsustainable, that this moment on the court was the inevitable breaking point. And in that moment, all the rules, all the protocols, all the traditions of tennis didn't matter one bit. Riza stood up from the player's box. Security guards, who are trained to keep spectators in their designated areas, took a step toward her. But there must have been something in her eyes, some fierce maternal determination that communicated very clearly, "Try to stop me and see what happens." She walked down the stairs, past the officials, past the tournament staff, right up to the low wall that separates the seating area from the court. Alex, through her tears, somehow sensed her mother's presence. She looked up, her face streaked with tears, her eyes red and wide with a kind of panic that had nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with the feeling of being utterly overwhelmed by the world. Alex stumbled toward the sideline, not to her chair, not to her coaching box, but to where her mother stood. And then Riza did something that will be remembered as one of the most powerful moments in sports history. She leaned over the barrier, reached out, and pulled her daughter into an embrace. Alex buried her face in her mother's shoulder, and her whole body shook with the force of her crying. The cameras caught it all. The microphones, those incredibly sensitive pieces of equipment that can pick up every grunt and every curse word muttered under a player's breath, caught something far more important. In a voice that was calm, steady, and filled with a love so pure it cut through all the noise, Ela said 13 words, "Come home, my love. In my heart, you will always be a champion." Let's break down the absolute perfection of those 13 words. Come home, my love. Not you can win this. Not pull yourself together. Not think about all the people depending on you. Come home. An invitation to abandon the fight, to step away from the battlefield, to return to the place where she is loved unconditionally. It's permission to quit, which is perhaps the most radical thing you can offer an elite athlete who has been taught their entire life that quitting is the ultimate sin. In my heart, you will always be a champion. Not you will be a champion if you win. Not you were a champion when you won the US Open Juniors. You are a champion. Present tense. Always. Regardless of the score, regardless of the ranking, regardless of what the trolls say. In the only heart that truly matters, your mother's, you have nothing left to prove. The impact was instantaneous and seismic. The stadium, which had been holding its collective breath, erupted into applause. Not the polite golf clap you hear after a good rally. Not the partisan cheering for a local favorite. This was a standing ovation that washed over the venue in waves, starting from the upper decks and rolling down to the courtside seats. People were openly crying. Hardened sports journalists were wiping their eyes. Even the opponent, standing awkwardly on the other side of the net, was seen wiping away tears. For those few minutes, nobody cared about the match. Nobody cared about who would advance to the next round. The only thing that mattered was the raw, beautiful humanity of a mother loving her daughter. But the real explosion happened online, and this is where the story becomes truly extraordinary. Remember all those trolls? Remember the months of malicious comments, the cruel memes, the armchair psychologists diagnosing Alex with a lack of mental toughness? Within minutes of the clip being uploaded, the entire narrative shifted. The video of Riz's embrace and those 13 words went viral in a way that very few sports moments ever do. We're talking tens of millions of views within the first hour. We're talking about the clip being shared across every social media platform, every sports news site, every morning talk show. And here's the beautiful part, the hate evaporated. It didn't just fade away, it was actively deleted. Trolls were going back through their own Twitter feeds and Instagram comments and deleting their vicious posts out of shame. The hashtag that had been used to criticize Alex was suddenly flooded with messages of support, with stories of people's own struggles with pressure, with apologies from people who realized they had contributed to pushing a young woman to her breaking point. A new hashtag, Come Home Alex, began trending worldwide, not as a suggestion that she quit tennis, but as a reminder that there are things more important than winning. Athletes from across the sporting world weighed in. Naomi Osaka, who has been incredibly open about her own mental health struggles, posted a simple heart emoji with the video. Coco Gauff wrote, "We are human beings first, athletes second. Sending love to Alex." Simone Biles, another athlete who has faced tremendous pressure and criticism, shared the clip with the caption, "This is what support looks like." Even legends who have been retired for years felt compelled to comment. Billie Jean King, a titan of tennis and a champion for athlete welfare, praised Riza for prioritizing her daughter's well-being over the outcome of a match. Rafael Nadal, Alex's mentor through her time at his academy, released a statement saying, "Alex is a champion not because of titles, but because of her heart. She will come back stronger." The media coverage shifted dramatically as well. Suddenly, the think pieces weren't about Alex's serve speed or her mental fragility. They were about the immense pressure we place on young athletes, about the toxicity of social media, about the importance of family support systems, about the need to remember that behind every jersey and every ranking number is a human being with feelings, fears, and breaking points. Sports psychologists were being interviewed about the mental health crisis in professional tennis. Former players were sharing their own stories of breaking down, of feeling crushed by expectations, of wishing they'd had someone like Riza in their corner giving them permission to just walk away. This moment has been compared to other watershed moments in sports mental health awareness. When Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open in 2021, citing mental health concerns, it sparked a global conversation. When Simone Biles withdrew from Olympic events in Tokyo, it challenged our understanding of what bravery really means. But the Alex Ela moment feels different because it wasn't a withdrawal announced through a press release or a carefully crafted social media post. It was raw, it was unplanned, it was happening in real time in front of thousands of people and millions watching at home. And the response, Riz's response, was equally unscripted and genuine. There was no PR team involved, no damage control strategy, just a mother doing what mothers do, protecting their child. So what happened after the embrace? Alex eventually composed herself enough to stand up. She picked up her racket. She dried her eyes. And here's the thing that so many people get wrong when they discuss this moment. Alex didn't retire from the match immediately. She actually continued playing. Not because she suddenly felt better, not because Riz's words magically fixed everything, but because even in her broken state, she has the heart of a competitor. She finished the set, she shook her opponent's hand with grace and dignity, and when the match was over, she lost, for the record, but nobody remembers the score. She walked off the court with her mother's arm around her shoulder, her head held high. The immediate aftermath saw an outpouring of support that dwarfed anything anyone had anticipated. The Philippines, a nation that had been divided in its criticism of Alex, suddenly united in protective solidarity. Politicians who had never mentioned her before were releasing statements of support. Celebrities were sharing the video. Regular people were posting their own stories of feeling overwhelmed, of being saved by a parent's love, of learning that winning isn't everything. The shift in public perception was so dramatic that sociologists and psychologists are still studying it as a case study in how quickly social media can change from a weapon to a healing force. There's also been fascinating discussion in the sports psychology community about the role of parent involvement in high-level athletics. Some have criticized Riza for interfering during a match, arguing that Alex needs to learn to handle pressure on her own. But that criticism fundamentally misunderstands what happened. Riza wasn't trying to coach Alex through the match or give her tactical advice. She recognized that her daughter was in genuine psychological distress, and she responded as any loving parent would. There's a difference between hovering and micromanaging your child's career, and recognizing a moment of crisis and responding with compassion. Riza clearly understood that distinction, and her intervention has been widely praised by psychologists as an example of healthy parental support. Looking forward, the tennis world is watching Alex Ela's journey with a new sense of respect and empathy. When she does return to competition, you can bet that the crowds will be different. The media coverage will be different. Even the trolls, those who remain, will likely think twice before posting hateful comments. The collective shame of having contributed to a young woman's breakdown is a powerful deterrent. More importantly, Alex herself will be different. She's experienced the worst-case scenario and survived it. She's learned that her worth is not determined by her ranking or her results. She's learned that vulnerability is not weakness. These are lessons that will serve her well not just in tennis, but in life. The story of Alexandra Ela and those 13 words from her mother is ultimately a story about love. Not love of tennis, though that's certainly part of it. But love between a mother and daughter. Love that sees beyond trophies and rankings. Love that says, I don't care what the world thinks of you. To me, you are perfect. In a sports culture that often treats athletes as commodities, as entertainment for our consumption, as vessels for our national pride, Riza Ela reminded us that these are people first. They are someone's child, someone's sibling, someone's friend. And when they break, because everyone breaks eventually, they need what all of us need, unconditional love and acceptance. The Australian Open has concluded. Champions have been crowned in every draw. But months from now, when people talk about the 2026 Australian Open, the match results will be forgotten. What will be remembered is the image of a young woman in tears, and her mother reaching across the divide to hold her. What will be remembered are those 13 words, "Come home, my love." In my heart, you will always be a champion. What will be remembered is the moment the internet stopped being cruel and started being human. That's Alex Ela's legacy, whether she wins another match or not. She reminded us all what truly matters. So here at Court Vision Plus, we stand with Alex. We stand with every young athlete grinding through the pressure, the criticism, the expectations. We stand with every parent trying to support their child through the impossible demands of elite competition. And we stand with the revolutionary idea that maybe, just maybe, the most courageous thing an athlete can do is admit when they need help, when the weight is too heavy, when they need to come home. The next chapter of Alex Ela's story hasn't been written yet. But we'll be here to cover it, to celebrate her triumphs and support her through her struggles. Because that's what we do here at Court Vision Plus. We don't just watch the matches. We care about the people playing them. Now it's your turn. What do you think about Alex's breakdown and Riz's response? Do you think the pressure on young athletes has become unsustainable? Have you ever experienced a moment where you needed someone to tell you it's okay to step away? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a community that supports athletes as humans first. If you believe Alex is a champion regardless of her ranking, type champion in the comments right now. Let's flood the comment section with positivity. And listen, if you've made it this far in the video, you're clearly invested in these stories. So do me a favor, smash that like button. It tells YouTube that this content matters, that these stories need to be told. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update on Alex, Eala, and the rest of the tennis world's most compelling stories. We've got a community of over 500,000 subscribers who believe that sports are about more than just winning and losing, and we'd love to have you join us. This is Court Vision Plus, reminding you that in the game of life, we're all champions in someone's heart. We'll catch you in the next one. Stay strong, stay human, and remember, it's okay to come home.
I'm super happy with the game, how I played. I think she was a tough opponent, and yeah, tough conditions out there, very hot, but I'm just very happy with the win and excited to. Hi everybody, it's Alex de Ela here. I just wanted to thank you all so much for the support. The atmosphere these past few days have been completely amazing.